Welcome back to the Results Selling Framework podcast. I'm Keith Marchiano, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's absolutely revolutionized how MSPs approached sales and lead generation. The power of AI, artificial intelligence, for prospect identification and appointment setting. I am really thrilled. I'm going to go back in my DeLorean in the time back machine here to be joined by somebody who I've known for well over a decade, definitely a pioneer in our MSP industry, Erick Simpson. Now, I gotta tell you, I first met Erick, I can't remember the dates, I'm getting old, you can see the gray in my beard. If you're watching via podcast on YouTube, I think it was 2012 when he was co-founder of SPC International and MSP University. He was helping MSPs learn the fundamentals of selling and marketing managed services. I was kind of new to the whole game, kind of going from selling projects and things like that into managed services, and really wanted to see his model versus what I learned mostly through Secrets of Question-Based Selling, Tom Freese's book. So fast forward to today, and Erick's become North America's leading MSP business growth and development strategist. He is a leader in the MSP industry. I said it before, certainly a pioneer in our industry. So talk about staying ahead of the curve. Erick built and sold one of the very first MSPs and since guided thousands of IT providers through business transformations, including growth and sales. He's authored 4 books. He co-hosts a top-ranked MSP podcast, and he's been recognized as Synchro's #1 MSP resource in North America, along with countless other accolades in channel futures, one of the most thought leaders in our industry. Certainly, Erick is known as one of them. Today, we're going to explore how MSPs can leverage generative AI to identify ideal prospects. AI is a topic on top of everybody's mind. I want to talk about that, how it relates to salespeople and growing MSPs, specifically reoccurring revenue in the managed services industry. So here we go.
Well, hey, Keith, thanks so much for having me on, and appreciate that lengthy intro. I think when you've been in the industry as long as you and I have, you learn a few things, so you know a few things. That's how I like to put it. So happy to be invited on, and just really appreciate the MSP community and the MSP channel. Today we operate 2 different organizations. One is MSP Mastered, where we continue that great work that we've been doing for a couple of decades, helping MSPs build and grow their businesses. And then Channel Mastered is an organization where we work with vendors and distributors to help them improve their relationships and go-to-market strategies with MSP partners. So thanks again for inviting me on. I know we've been talking about this topic for a bit, kicking back and forth a couple of ideas, and I'm really excited to talk about how to help MSPs improve their marketing and sales outcomes using some very interesting AI prompts and some AI platforms that we're using to help MSPs do just that, do more with less and be better at it, and create a repeatable, consistent source of what you mentioned, which is the golden egg, or the golden goose, is recurring revenue. We know that the more percentage of recurring revenue we have in our MSP practices, it directly impacts our valuation at the time of exit of an MSP. We've worked in over 4 dozen MSP M&A engagements, so we really understand what it takes to increase valuation, efficiency, consistency, and growth in the right way. So thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect and see you after all these years, and just kind of how you've continued to evolve in the industry. And boy, just, again, go back to how the MSPs started. You know that you were deep into it, VARs, basically selling projects and bunch of hardware. And doing these managed services. I'd been selling for, goodness gracious, probably close over a decade by the time I met you. but just again, kind of that curiosity in me, and always, being a salesperson at the time, I wanted to improve. And you had some pretty leading edge stuff back then to help managed services companies get into it. So I do want to get back into that time machine and kind of go back to like 1997 when you started your first MSP. Discuss those early beginnings and kind of how you transitioned into the channel with Cisco and Microsoft, et cetera, and kind of dive into, lead it up to where we are today. Because you mentioned it before, right? AI helps us just be more productive. Like, boy, the tools that we have today to help us grow our business are well advanced to 20 years ago, let alone 5 to 10 years ago. So kind of talk through that timeline. Obviously, don't want to start with your birth or anything like that, but just kind of take us through like what you've seen. Like I want the audience to kind of hear what you've seen since 97 to today, and kind of how this is a revolutionary time in our industry.
All right. Well, appreciate the opportunity to age myself, Keith, and go back into the wormhole, the Wayback Machine. I started off in the enterprise, back in the early 90s. I started off like most of us do, kind of level 1 help desk, and kind of worked my way up through the ranks over the next few years to where I got to earn the positions of CTO and CIO in the enterprise. And, I just got an itch. There was a kind of a ceiling there in the enterprise. I really, got to a point where politics really started to impact my ability to really move the needle for my team and my department and things like that. And I just wanted to try something new and different. And so I took the entrepreneurial plunge, no planning. I said, you know what, I'm going to start an IT practice. And that's what, happened in 1997. In the enterprise, what I did, eventually what we were doing was building out call centers and service desks for Fortune 1000 organizations. So I really understood very, very deeply what it took to deliver projects effectively, efficiently, manage SLAs, manage all the KPIs in a service desk organization, everything that you needed to know to run a highly effective and scalable service desk or call center. So I said, you know what, let me try this on my own. So in 97, we launched our IT practice. I had a business partner at that time, and it was very much professional services and time and materials. Like, back in think about 97, 98, right? It was just reselling, like you said, hardware. I mean, those were some pretty heady times. Those are the days when, if you'll recall, Keith, we could actually make a pretty decent margin selling hardware.
Oh, yeah.
So fast forward a few years, and around 2003, 2004-ish, we started thinking about how can we do more with less? Like, how can we scale our organization? We had some very lofty revenue goals, and we did the math, and we figured, for us to hit these revenue goals, we would need to be managing maybe 20, 30 engineers based upon our, labor rates and things like that, and what we knew we could sell. And, we just didn't have an appetite to manage that many people at the time. So we thought, you know what, let's try doing something completely different. And so we rolled out what we called flat rate IT, which of course, unbeknownst to us, would become managed services later. So we made all the mistakes that first year. We were so early in the game, there weren't a lot of early MSP friendly vendor programs, right? So if we had to, get the best price for an RMM tool, say we'd have to buy like 1,000 licenses of that tool and then try to sell our way out of it. So these were the times when, nobody knew what an MSP practice was. We had to educate our clients. We did the whole ABC client list thing. Our A clients, they said, yeah, we don't really understand what you're trying to pitch us, Eric, but we trust you. So if you want us to sign up, we'll sign up too. We got a bunch of our B's over, but then we discovered we had a lot of C customers and probably some D and F customers in disguise in there as well. So we made every mistake in pricing and bundling until we figured it out. It took us about a year and some change to do that. We started with about 212-ish customer clients, and we ended up with about 67 that were on a managed service agreement by the time we were done. It took us a while to do that.
Yeah.
Along the way, we started, being noticed by other vendors and conferences that we would attend. People wanted to know what we were doing. That's interesting. Can you share your knowledge? And, one of the things I love doing is sharing and helping, the rising tide lift all boats. That's one of the things I love most about the MSP community is like we all, we're in competition with each other, right? But we all are very open. I've never been involved in any industry or community that is so giving, and the spirit of co-opetition is alive and well in the MSP channel. So started speaking at a bunch of conferences. Then we started getting asked to, train channels, partner channels on how to become MSPs and things like that. And that's kind of where this all took off. So we sold that MSP practice around the end of 2007, and then reinvested in building MSP University, which then later became SBC International. And that's where we trained about MSP University. Over the span of about 10 years, we trained about 30,000 IT providers by our count. Live events all over the world, workshops, boot camps, virtual events, webinars, half-day virtual workshops, everything that we could do to kind of share what we learned. And that's kind of where I found my real passion, is working with, other like-minded entrepreneurs and helping, grow that entrepreneurial fire and learning and sharing. And I tell you what, Keith, we made all the mistakes and we came out okay. We sold the practice, but I've learned so much more since then, working with other partners, working with vendors and distributors, than I ever could have just running that MSP practice. So yeah, that's kind of the journey along the way. We've made a lot of real impact for the partners and the clients that we work with. And we earn it every day. I mean, a day doesn't go by where I'm not learning something new from a conversation I'm having with an MSP or with working with a vendor. And again, it all is moving us toward this next, I'm not going to say evolution, it's like a revolution of AI. We've gone through these cycles of hardware resale, then it was kind of cloud, and then it was security. And now AI is on the forefront, where we're going to see the most rapid expansion and impact of a technology, not only in our channel, but on the planet that we've ever seen before. So they're really exciting times for the folks that are kind of tracking what's going on, and the folks that position themselves to leverage the benefits of AI and, get past all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about it and become leaders in it are going to do very, very well for themselves. I mean, we know today that organizations that are employing AI and are leading with AI first and pulling services behind it are more efficient, more scalable. They're getting more out of their internal teams because they're creating these advancement opportunities within the organization, delivering more valuable services to their clients, and ultimately are commanding several multiples more in EBITDA than your traditional MSP. And we know what's going on with M&A these days.
Yeah. So how, it's a great segue here to how is this different and why should MSPs care? You mentioned a couple, right? We went through the evolution of premise-based to cloud, then security. How is this totally different than what we've seen over the last, let's call it 30 years at this point?
Yeah, I think what is unique and different about it is that it is such a disruptive technology in terms of it can automate and replace some of the noise and the day-to-day repetitive activities, the low margin things that we do. And I'm not just speaking about, our industry. I mean, businesses worldwide are looking at this and saying, wow, this is a way for me to scale more broadly. And is it going to replace roles in an organization? Yes, I believe it will. But that's an opportunity for you to upskill your staff, to make them more valuable, to get them doing the things that you can generate much more margin from and value for your organization and for your clients. So the difference here is the dramatic speed that this technology is evolving to. We started off, 3 years ago maybe, when ChatGPT came about, just right around there. Yep. And we've gone already from a chatbot to agentic AI now. So we are now creating agents that are not simply just responding to an input, but they're actually able to execute activities on their own. And then we're now able to orchestrate a team of agents. So I can see a future where a business organization can have an agent for every person in the organization to help them just take care of the noise, do the repetitive stuff, let them focus on the really important stuff, and avoid some of this AI slop that we're hearing about, because that's a real thing too, right? Some folks are just like, hey, let's just put it into ChatGPT and here's my report. It's not what the technology true potential is. It's to make you better and more efficient and more valuable to your team, your organization, your clients, etc. So what's happened in the last 3 years is we've moved from kind of a chat bot where you entered questions and it spits out, back in the early days, a lot of incorrect
Wrong
information.
answers.
It's getting better and better and better
Yep.
at it, no matter what your chosen LLM is, or whether you're using ChatGPT or one of the other Grok or anything else like that. But really what the promise is, it's evolving so quickly that I feel that there is a chasm that is being created between the MSPs that aren't leveraging it internally, operationally, not just the AI that's included in some of the platforms that we're subscribing to and things like that, but actually leveraging it to improve their operation, understanding their data, because the most valuable asset in this whole equation isn't the AI, it's the data. And the more mature and the MSPs that have been MSPs the longest have the most amount of data from their customers. So just like our vendors are leveraging the data of all their MSP partners to enhance and improve their platforms for MSPs should be looking at their data of their customers and leveraging it to become more relevant and valuable to their customers. So if I could encapsulate it in like one sentence, I would say leveraging AI to take your conversations from the server room to the boardroom.
Oh,
Okay?
100%. Like literally, people always ask me, and kind of like as their coach, what's the best way to sell managed IT services? And I'm like, well, you really shouldn't be selling anything. You're solving problems. You should be having strategic conversation. And as we know, Eric, a lot of our industry is driven by owners that are technical in nature, not quite business people getting there. A lot of them are, but from a standpoint of having those strategic conversations is something that we here at Pax8 are teaching partners every day, whether it's from our sales coaching with results selling framework and having strategic conversations, or the journey to the managed intelligent provider, the MIP, where you got to have those strategic conversations in order to do this. So talk to, I guess, let's pivot to the sales piece. We all know like selling IT services is solving problems, finding out the problems and solving them, but certainly it's all about developing a know, like, and trust relationship. So talk to the listeners around the fundamentals of this AI strategic boardroom conversation and help MSP sales teams, if you will, who are trying to begin exploring AI for lead generation. What would you recommend for like first steps to get moving on this?
Boy, oh boy. Yeah. So that's a huge, huge topic, Keith. So again, thanks for having me on and teeing it up, because I'm really passionate about this specific benefit when we're leveraging AI, because you and I know marketing and sales are probably not our sharpest knife in the drawers as MSPs, right? These are the areas where we're technologists, we're engineers, right? We can we can build a network of your dreams, but can we market it broadly and sell tons and tons of it? Yeah, we struggle there. So just a few things that I've picked up along the way and I like to share with partners is the first things first, right? No matter what LLM you're using or what platform you're using, make sure that you are not sharing your data or your customers' data to anyone else. In fact, there are very specific steps that you can take. Just, search online of how to secure your particular LLM or platform. I know with ChatGPT, there's a couple of areas that you have to specifically turn off that are on by default. And one of those is that says, trains the LLM. Well, anything that says it trains the LLM means it's using your data to train the LLM. I've talked to some MSPs that are really, really savvy on how they use particular platforms, Keith, where they want to train the LLM on purpose and it's espouse the value and the benefits of their MSP and their services and things like that. Because we're seeing now web browsers that are basically AI web browsers. So anything that someone is searching for, if they're searching for it in an AI platform and it's been trained and they're looking for the best MSP and, pick your city in Florida, and you've taken some time to really train the LLM of why you're the best, you're going to surface in those search results. So it's interesting, right? So there's two things to think about. The things that you want to protect, you're going to make sure that that is data that only you have access to. So turn off anything that trains the LLM or allows the LLM to use your data, and be very mindful of governing that. And the same goes with when you're working with your clients. The easy entry point to AI and selling consulting services and projects for AI for your customers are going to be Copilot. It's easy. They're using Microsoft today. Copilot is an easy upsell, especially when you can train them on how to govern it properly, how to set up the data correctly, and teach them how to leverage it. Again, moving your value from the server room to the boardroom, helping deliver outcomes rather than technology, right? Business outcomes rather than technical outcomes. So just kind of set the stage there. Now, the next thing that we can do in terms of leveraging AI to help us identify prospects that fit our ideal customer profile is to learn how to write the correct prompts. So when you're training your LLM on your data, keeping it safe, you're telling it all about your organization, the services that you offer. So you're educating it, you're writing prompts, telling it, giving it links to information internally, maybe on your website, so that it really understands your value proposition. And then you can ask it to ask you questions to help it improve its understanding of your organization. So every time I write a prompt, I'm asking for some information. I always end the prompt with, please ask additional questions to improve your output. And it'll keep doing it as long as you keep telling it. So you can get lost in a rabbit hole doing that. But once you feel like it has
I know we're talking to a computer here, but that's what you need to, I love what you're saying, because it is conversational. Because if you can practice that with the AI to get the information that you need, it's just going to make the conversation in front of a person a lot more easy, right?
Yeah, and think about this. This will blow your mind, Keith. So there are studies that indicate that the more polite you are to your AI, the better output it delivers to you. So those of you that, I say, I always say please and thank you to my AI, because Judgment Day might be coming, right?
That's right.
So I want them to remember, oh, he was the nice human.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you educate it on what it knows, and challenge it, hey, give me write me a 1-page, executive brief on the value of our MSP organization that we can use as a leave behind for a client, and keep prompting it, giving it more information. So it is a very kind of a symbiotic kind of a relationship. And once you get past that initial, oh my goodness, I'm talking to like a computer, and the smarter that these LLMs become, man, the better the output is. And everybody has their favorite, right? So we have conversations about that. So once you feel like, okay, it's got it, now you can start writing prompts around helping identify ideal prospects for you. So I'm going to pull some data from a slide deck that I use to kind of teach some of these concepts. And the first prompt is written in a manner that sounds something like this, Keith. Please, of course, search the internet and create a numbered list of 10 law firms within 100 miles of Long Island, New York, with 20 employees or more, and a short description of the company with a link to their website. So, trust but verify. That's why I always ask for a link to the website, because I remember the days when 60% of the output that I would get out of it was completely fabricated out of whole cloth. It like did not exist. So I'm always checking, and you get really good at writing these prompts. And this is an actual prompt I helped an MSP create, and the output was really good. 8 out of 10 were exactly what we asked for. So you could refine it over time, but that's just one kind of step one in getting kind of a list of potential prospects. So what you do is you check those out and say, okay, yeah, 3 or 4 of these look really good. Then the next thing that I would recommend, and I don't recommend asking it to give you 100 or 50, do it 10 at a time, because the more you tend to ask it, kind of the worse the output becomes over time. It's kind of been my experience.
Right. You want to be, I think you kind of gave examples, but be specific, try narrow that down, right?
Right. Absolutely. Just as the more specific you can be, and you can ask it, again, ask questions for clarity and to improve your output. And it may ask you more questions. Say, hey, narrow it down, filter it down for me, and really put it to work. So what this does, obviously, is save us from the old way of searching for prospects, right? It's like searching on the internet and trying to find, all this. So it really helps in research and filtering and things like that. So let's say I found my ideal 10, right? My pilot is, I'm going to pilot with 10, and then let's go to the next step. The next step, what I'll do is I'll ask everyone to, if you're not already subscribed to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can get a free 30-day trial. But Sales Navigator is the portion of LinkedIn that is basically the CRM of every account inside of LinkedIn. It's millions and millions and millions. It is the number one business social media platform for business owners. I mean, it's why they were acquired by Microsoft. So we go into Sales Navigator now, and you have probably 30 or 40 different filters you can use. And what I want to do is I'm going to search for each one of these companies that came back. And the first one, I'm going to put the name of the company in, and then I'm going to have it search, and it's going to find all the staff that have an account linked to that company in LinkedIn. Now, a way to really fast forward your outcomes and trying to connect with somebody, because what we're doing is we're creating a connection request, and we're going to build an online relationship. Sounds weird, but it's a relationship that it's 10 times or 20 times harder to build a relationship online than it is going to a mixer, right, or an event and having a beer at the bar and chatting with people. But this is a way for you to augment and create a systematized approach to fill the top of your lead funnel. So not only am I going to search, go ahead, you have a question.
I want to interject one thing, but it's way more effective to start building that know and like part of it, of the relationship. It's way more effective than the old school methods of prospecting, which was making phone calls, sending emails, knocking on doors. Like, you got maybe some information. Most of the time you got, nobody answered the phone or somebody hung up on you, but it is a long game. I always tell people, choose your hard, right? You can do the old school way of making calls where nobody picks up the phone, or what you're talking about right now, Eric, is trying to connect with somebody. And I love LinkedIn. You talk about what it's done with Sales Navigator, with some AI implementation. It's allowing you to build these lists a little more effectively. Not only that, and I'm sure you're going to get to it, is like, now you can also see who that person knows that you know, right? How you're going to make that true connection with them, or get somebody to vouch for you too, right?
Yeah, so deep in the ways that you can leverage it. And I will also say that one of the reasons why I like Sales Navigator, probably one of the top reasons, is because I know when I create a connection request in Sales Navigator, that email alert will end up in that prospect's inbox.
Yeah.
If nothing else, they're not going to block the LinkedIn messaging, right? But as MSPs, we know how hard it is to get into somebody's inbox. Heck, we help our clients prevent unwanted messaging and things like that. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, those messages, I promise you, will get into more inboxes than you just, out of the cold blind sending somebody an email.
And I want to tie this together a little bit because you're making some great points. So Erick's mentioned like target audience, right? TCP, industry, size of company, who you're looking to get. Like the who is more important than the where.
Mm-hmm.
Erick gave you the who first. Now we're going where. Sales Navigator, AI. You can also, when you reach out to make a connection, you're not, I'll repeat it again, you're not selling anybody anything. You're literally trying to start an online relationship, like you said, Erick, and that's the key. If you go in trying to pitch your stuff or throw in your infomercial, you're going to get shut down. They're going to ignore you. Your job is to connect with them. So use AI to make a good connection with them that's non-salesy, that's basically like, hey, we know each other this way, or these are different things I can help you with. I'd like to add you to my professional network. Make it short, simple, sweet, to the point. The why, right?
You're absolutely right, Keith. I mean, we've all been victims of accepting somebody's connection request, and within 1/1000th of a second, you get the auto reply that is this 10 paragraphs with no paragraphs between of a sales pitch. That is not what this is. That is not what this is. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the 4-to-1 approach, and basically what it means is I'm going to give 4 items of value before I ask for anything in return. It's like, the old sales adage is I want heat out of the fireplace, but you got to put some logs in first, right? And generate a little bit of value, a little bit of interest. So I'm going to walk you down that strategy in just a second. But one thing that I want to make sure that we do is you mentioned your ideal customer profile, understanding who they are. One other thing that you can have ChatGPT or, Grok or whatever platform is, remember, you're training it on what you do best. In your prompts, you can also inject, align these 10 prospects' needs against our deliverables and our value, and identify connection points, right? So that's a 201 level conversation where we are now making a much more direct alignment between it understands who their target audience is, what they do, what maybe regulations or things like that they have to comply with, so that we can create a really sticky conversation. And it cannot sound AI generated. So this is where the human element comes in. As nice and kind as I am to my AI, I find myself, Keith, believe it or not, sometimes saying, please make it more human. Like, please do it again. Please do it again. Try again. And then I'll take that. Then I'll do the final polish because it's in my tone. And another great tip while we're on these kind of, rabbit hole tips is also, if you've written a lot of content yourself, if you've done webinars or speaking engagements, you have some audio or video of yourself, you can train the AI on your profile, on your persona, and say, this is Erick Simpson, this is my tone, this is and then you can have it say, go out and search everything you can find about Erick Simpson. And then again, you're training it so that when I'm done, like I've spent probably 2 years now working with these kind of AIs, and they've gotten really, really much, much better. But I've been training them all the way. So there's so much data now that they have that I have to do a lot less correction and guidance now when I'm prompting, because it already knows who I am, how I want to say it, especially if I'm doing quotes or proposals. It's got examples of these things, and then I can refer back to, hey, make it in this style of the proposal for this particular prospect and eliminate these things. So again, leveraging it so I can be the best me that I can be. So just a couple of extra tips there. So, all right, now, skipping back to our previously scheduled channel, we're talking about identifying these prospects in LinkedIn. So now I know who my companies are, but who is my ideal target contact at that company, right? Mm-hmm. So when we go in, I put the company name in LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, it comes, in this example, I've got this large attorney organization that came up. It's like 2,000 employees. I'm like, holy cow, how am I going to filter this thing down? the first thing that I do, Keith, is I want to make sure that I toggle. So we're talking Sales Navigator. So there's in the filtering section, there's a toggle that says posted on LinkedIn. You can turn that on. By default, it's off. I turn it on because I want to know what it does is it tells me who has posted or shared or reposted on LinkedIn within the past 30 days. Why would I want to do that? Because I want to engage with people that are engaged in Sales Navigator. You could be trying to message somebody that never goes into LinkedIn,
Right.
ever, but they are the person you want to get a hold of. So I'm going to filter that down now. And then I'm also going to filter it down to decision makers. So out of that 2,000 result in this example, there's 75 decision makers. So I click that filter and then I toggle on posted on LinkedIn. So out of these 75 decision makers, how many of them have posted on LinkedIn in the past 30 days? So that's my filtering methodology. And then I identify who those folks are. So it came back with maybe 17 folks, right, in this example. And the ideal prospect, and this, I was doing this for, like I said, an MSP client, and then it worked so well that I use these examples when I'm having these conversations and training others. So the chief information officer popped right up. And I said, oh, chief information officer, a director of business development, research and competitive intelligence, look, all these different roles, but chief information officer, holy cow. And so now I look at this person and there's a little fly out if you click it and it shows you what they posted on LinkedIn. Okay. So now I've identified a company, right, using my AI. I've taken that information and I'm doing my research on each of these companies in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I've identified and filtered down my ideal target prospect that I want to communicate with. And then I now identified what they posted. And what this person posted was the evolving role of the CISO, more than just security. He reposted an article and made a comment on it. Now, I've got some ammunition. So, again, I want to create a connection request with this individual. I can use AI and I can say, hey, review this article that this person posted and write an appreciative comment asking one question. It's as simple as that, Keith. And it comes back and it does exactly that. So it says, the prompt, I'm reading it to you from this slide. It says, you're a cybersecurity consultant. You want to engage with a cold prospect for your services that has posted an interesting article online, and you wish to respond with a question. Now, you can do one of two ways. You can say, here's a link to the article, but sometimes AI can't get to the article.
Right.
So I'm going to I say, here is an excerpt from the article. So again, I'm doing my human job and going, okay, I'm working with my intelligence, with my AI. And then I post the excerpt and it talks about new SEC requirements, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the prompt, I post, write a brief, thoughtful thank you message to the prospect for posting the article and write a follow-up question regarding the excerpt. Holy cow, right? We're learning stuff today. Yeah. So now,
strong.
It does exactly that. So here's what, with a little massaging, my ultimate connection request looked like. Person's name was Nick. Hi, Nick. Thanks for sharing the article on the new SEC requirements related to cyber threat risk management and security oversight. I'm curious, what are the initial strategies or steps your company is taking to ensure compliance with the SEC cybersecurity requirements? ? Looking forward to your insights. Let's connect. Now, I've evolved the prompting a little bit to even now include the person's company name in there. So instead of saying what strategy or initial strategy or steps your company is taking, what initial strategies or steps is ErickSimpson.com taking to ensure? So it makes it a little bit more
personalized.
So that's the LinkedIn connection request. I'm appreciating that they posted an article. I'm not saying, hey, we are in the same, hemisphere. We should connect. I'm saying, hey, I read what you posted. I appreciate it. Here's a question. Wow. You think that's going to improve my odds of Nick accepting my connection request and maybe even answering my question? It absolutely does. So those are just the initial components. So what are your thoughts?
That is genius. Like literally from a standpoint, you are having a conversation about something that they care about. Without even diving into, like, we haven't even scratched the surface. We could probably spend another half hour talking about buyer personalities and what they care about and like what business
really
challenges they have, how their job is measured, all those things. That is amazing. First of all, you're finding people who are engaged in LinkedIn. How many times you said it? How many times do we reach out to people like, oh, I made all these outbound requests on LinkedIn and got no return? Well, are they on LinkedIn? You're just taking basically what would take months in old school prospecting methods and are able to kind of whittle it down. And I'll say this last thing. What you just shared was quality over quantity is probably the key of the game. It's not how many people you're trying to connect with. It's, are they the right people, and are you having engaging conversations with them around topics that they care about?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm appreciating something that they've done and made a comment. I could even write, hey, your comment, I could spin this all kinds of different ways, but I'm not, my reason to connect with him comes off as, hey, thank you for posting that article. I've got a question for you. What about this? I'm not mentioning who I am,
Yep.
what my company does, none of that. I'm just coming across as, hey, thank you for that. What are your thoughts on this? And trying to get them to, even if they don't respond to me, they can connect with me, right?
Right. That's what I was going to get. Clarifying question for the audience is, you're doing this as a connection request.
Correct.
And then that's your personal note in the connection request.
That's right. That's right.
Genius.
Now, again, this is kind of where we start, right? We can go 201, 301. If you want to have a follow-on chat at some point in 2026 and we can go the next level, I'll be happy to do that too. Now, let me take you to the next step. Remember I said this is a 4-to-1 strategy, which means I want to give 4 items of value before I ask for something in return. What I'm going to ask for something in return is, hey, can we go get coffee? Can we have a chat? I'd love to learn more. Like, I'm now asking for that meeting or that chat or that discussion. So how do I give Nick 4 items of value? Here's how I do it. I'm going to create a prompt. And again, we're just at a very prompt level. We're not even getting into agenda gathering. This is very basic stuff that everyone can do. So I want to write a prompt that asks my AI this. You are a blogger who writes about the cybersecurity industry. I'd like you to please find 10 of the most recent news articles in the cybersecurity or technology industry that affect small and medium-sized business. You can even adjust it to, law firms, right? And provide the title and a short summary of each article's key points, along with a link to the online article. And I let it loose. And it comes back with 10 articles, and I don't like 6 or 7 of them, but a couple of these are pretty good. So I identify the articles, and again, I'm going to try to find 4 items of value. Maybe I find 2 or 3, or maybe I prompt it again for something else if I'm keeping up with Nick's next post and update, and I go, So I find an article, and my thank you to Nick for connecting with me. This is a thank you. Again, not the, sales vomit that we typically get when somebody connects, right? It says, hey, Nick, thanks for connecting with me, right? So I came across this article, name of the article, and thought it might strike a chord with you. Here's the link. Let me know your thoughts. And cutting to the chase, I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times. And hopefully Nick responds and we start a little bit of a chat, things like that. I'm going to keep doing it until I feel like, okay, now it's time maybe I can ask for something from Nick in return. Now, if I'm doing my job right as a sales professional, Keith, I really understand my target prospect, understand Nick's needs. I've done the research. AI has helped me with some of this stuff. A couple of additional things I can do is, because this particular vertical that we're using in this example is the law firms, right? It's the legal industry. They've got events going on all the time, right? They've got mixers, they've got conferences, they've got this and that and the other thing. You said a minute ago, it's quality over quantity. I'm not just doing this with Nick, right? Remember, I had 10. I'm going to go another 10. I'm going to use the same approach with each of them. If I'm really, really good, I can use the same articles with everybody because they all share the same interests. So now I'm building out a little bit more volume in the top of my funnel. And then I'm going to start looking out for these events. Where's the next local event? Where's the next mixer? Where's the next conference? And guess what I'm going to ask Nick? Nick, the New Jersey Bar Association mixer on Wednesday night is happening. Are you going to be there? Right? And so now I'm not pitching. I would love to meet you in person. So I'm looking for ways to do it. Some folks, might think, my goodness, that is a lot of work. My goodness, it is. But it's the sales professionals that go deep and really understand their target audience and build relationships this way, giving, allowing a natural relationship to occur, the ones that are the most successful and generate the highest volume of revenue for their organizations.
So I love what you're saying. Like I have an analogy that I use. I'm a storyteller, so I always use it with people I talk to. It's called fishing where the fish are. And you have two choices when you go fishing. And I usually give them, I'm a Maryland guy, so I give them, there's two options. Like one, I'll go to Deep Creek Lake up in the mountains, man-made lake. I'll sit on the pier, just cast my rod out, probably have some sort of worm or some lure that I had laying around.
Yeah.
I'm not catching a lot. It's literally just for my relaxation, get away from the family, have a cup of coffee, watch nature in the morning. Versus going out with my buddy on his boat that has a fish finder on the Chesapeake Bay where we're hunting rockfish of a certain size that would be dinner for the family. I love what you're saying. Not only, kind of wrapping in the fish where the fish are, going to their mixers, their networking events, but you talked a lot about the right bait to put on the lure, right? Or the lure that's going to get bites, get nibbles. Yeah. And when you show up to these events, like that person Nick might not respond to you, but all of a sudden you're chatting there and he sees you and he recognizes your picture from LinkedIn. There could be a personal introduction, could be, but then you're also sharing these stories, you're gaining knowledge, all this information you just shared with us today is you just becoming a little more knowledgeable around something different than just IT and technology.
I love the analogy. Yeah, I love fishing where the fish are. I had a friend that used to say, he gave me this weird duck hunting analogy, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, if you go duck hunting, you don't just go to any lake. You want to go to the lake where the fat ducks are. Yeah. Just not any ducks. You want the fat ducks. So, right. When you can take it to the level of where you're going to the events where they are, where they congregate and say, hey, can I buy you a beer at, the mixer, or will you be at the conference? Can we just, take a few minutes? I'd love to introduce myself personally. Again, there's all kinds of different avenues to get that meeting in person, but kind of leveraging AI and some of these tools that we kind of use for different purposes. When you really put a strategy around it, it just helps make you a little bit more efficient, and it helps upskill your AI game and your approach and your relationship building skills, in my opinion, right? Because once you start asking AI, hey, what's your opinion? Like I've started really doing that a lot lately, where I'm trusting it a little bit more, Keith. So I'm like, okay, what have I left out? What would you recommend? What are the next steps? Like, it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I might take that. I might not take that, but it just helps have a different perspective. Imagine if you could ask somebody that is knowledgeable in a certain aspect of life a question, and you're just kind of trying to learn these things. You want to take input from everywhere you can. I'm not saying trust AI. I'm saying, hey, leverage it, trust but verify, use it and challenge it. Push back, ask it to ask questions. Another prompt that I usually add to is explain your work or explain your logic. So I want to understand why it's saying these things as well.
Right? Why are you giving me this answer?
Right.
I love this. Like literally lots of great information, but I think the one big takeaway is you're getting this information, large scale information, you got to personalize it. Kind of really have AI make genuine personal outreach, right? That's going to engage other people. This has been phenomenal. Any bows you want to tie on this box? Because this is like a Christmas present for the people listening. Because I got to go back and listen to it because you've given so much information, and I'm sure the listeners are going to go back and listen to this episode. But you talked about like how to get started, some of the future outlook, prompting, the messaging, things like that. Any last minute tips, advice for the people that are listening to just to get started on this thing?
Yeah, I think just be mindful. Try not to rely so much on AI that you kind of skirt into the cross the line where it's very obvious that there's some AI generated stuff going on there. I mean, we've seen a lot of that slop too. You've seen it too, Keith. I've seen some emails and some posting and things like that. I'm seeing YouTube that is completely AI generated clips, and I'm just like, oh man, that's just not good. You don't want the AI to negatively impact your genuine desire to connect with this person. Use it to help augment and prompt you to think differently, but don't just go out there and just take what AI and says, I don't know, I'm just going to try it. Don't try it. Train it, be mindful about it, give it examples of how, you write, how you could feed it email messages, you could feed it all kinds of things that help guide it to sound more like you and to think more like you and to present things in a way that you want, that more closely align with how you're wired. Don't use AI for it to guide you in those areas, I guess is my best takeaway. It's kind of like, it's a slippery slope, right? And again, be mindful. Anything that's worth something takes time to develop. Ask questions of it, challenge it. And there's plenty of great online training. I mean, even LinkedIn, they've got training. YouTube has got really good training on prompt crafting and things like that. Try to stay within your lane, know what your purpose is, and keep it squarely focused on that purpose, or you'll go end up down kind of rabbit holes and understanding how black holes work in a minute by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I always kind of say from, the best salespeople are curious. What you described today, anything that AI comes back with, you should be curious to understand the meaning behind it. And I love what you said, challenge it, right? Challenge it to make sure that you're getting the right information. And when you go to communicate it, is it in the right tone? Goes back also to what you said at the top, right? We need to know who we're going after. If you're going to be a generalist and go after every small business, it's going to be hard to have conversations that are meaningful to them and to be able to comprehend it. When you go to those mixers or when you sit in front of them for coffee or as a prospect who's looking for an IT partner, you got to be able to have these conversations, and knowledge is power. I love what you brought to the table here.
Yeah, appreciate that, Keith. Like I said, seen a thing or two, so I'd like to share a thing or two now and then. Appreciate it.
What do you think's coming? What's some of these game changers for MSP sales teams that you kind of see coming, over the next 6 months between now and summertime?
Well, if you were to ask me what I think the greatest opportunity is for MSPs in the next 6 months, I 100% believe that we need to start leading the AI conversations with our clients, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are a lot of MSPs out there, Keith, you work with them, that feel awkward having the cybersecurity conversation with their customers. And they think, I'm calling customers and clients clients, right? Because clients get it. But you've got these customers that are just kind of, they give you every reason in the world not to sign up for your enhanced cybersecurity bundle of services, right? Who wants my data? I'm small. Well, you want your data, right? There's always an objection to be overcome there. But AI is a great way to pull these cybersecurity services solutions into that conversation. Jay McBain, the chief analyst at Omdian now, I saw him present recently, and he had a slide up that said something like 87%, some crazy, very high value percentage of business owners either are already using AI, chatbots and things like that, or want to adopt AI in their business. Keith, I've never heard of any service or solution that high a percentage of business owners said they want. So that means that MSPs have an opportunity. Skill up and understand the easy entry point, I think, is Microsoft Copilot. That's an easy conversation to have. They're already in the Microsoft ecosystem. It may be a license upgrade. And I think they've even made a lot of the professional Copilot features available for free right now. So you could really do a POC with clients, leading that transition and then pulling in all the governance that's required to secure that data. And that's how you get more customers, because clients are already there with you, to buy into your enhanced cybersecurity service and solutions because they want to leverage AI. That's a huge opportunity. And then again, moving that conversation from the server room to the boardroom, because now you're talking AI, you're talking about helping clients understand their business data, understand how to run their business more efficiently. You're really delivering business outcomes rather than technology outcomes at that point.
That's right. That's right. A lot of discussion out there, a lot of noise, I say, is like around selling AI agents. Like put that in the background right now. The opportunity is people are using AI and it's opening up a massive security hole, right? You got data leaks if people are using it, not using it correctly. So there's opportunity there, kind of like you mentioned, for existing clients to upsell them into the full security stack that you have, and to make sure prospects that are out there are securing themselves before they start executing and implementing AI solutions inside their organization. So that all has to start with that strategic conversation. So,
yeah, and like you say at Pax8, you then become that managed intelligence provider, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's awesome. Erick, so great to connect with you again. This has been phenomenal. Great conversation. Great way to kind of start off the year. This is early 2026 that we're recording this and releasing this. So great information. How can people get in touch with you? How can they get information from you around this topic?
So my email address is Erick, ERICK, at mspmastered.com. You can find all kinds of information there. You can find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. I'd be happy to chat.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Erick. I'm sure I'll see you at a future MSP event in the near future, and certainly on LinkedIn, as we always just chat with each other there. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Take care, Keith.
You too, Erick. Take care.
Bye.
That wraps up today's Results Selling Framework episode on AI Sales Mastery for MSP lead generation. Pretty incredible conversation we just had here. Sales is hard. Finding new business is hard. This makes it a little bit easier, what Erick talked about. Connecting with people, building a know, like, and trust relationship, having conversations, strategic business conversations over the technical conversation is key. Prospecting is tactical. You must make it happen. This isn't a wish it or want it to happen. Everybody wishes and wants new leads. You can't wish for leads to magically appear. It just won't happen. Well, you can, but I'm sure you'll be disappointed about the outcome and the results, right? It's just not going to happen. Waiting for somebody to, hop on your website. Today, you heard tactical advice for immediate implementation and strategic insights for long-term success using AI to improve lead generation. Sales is the long game. Relationships is the long game. Think of any relationship you have in your life. It's not a quick and instant connection. Sometimes those things happen. Erick gave you some great pointers. So I've got some action items here for you. First of all, thanks for listening. I appreciate you. Go to academy.pax8.com. You can search for Secrets of Effective Prospecting. It's an instructor-led training. It's going to be happening in May. It's a little bit out. You can register right now. We're also going to have a session at Pax8 Beyond this June around this topic of Secrets of Effective Prospecting, which will have a bunch of these AI topics in there. So make sure you register for Beyond now. I'm sure it's going to sell out pretty quick. Lastly, in the Academy is an on-demand course called Mission Possible, Top Marketing and Prospecting Tactics. That is going to be redesigned in the next coming months to include this AI conversation, but it does have some good tactical pieces around fishing where the fish are. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Result Selling Framework podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you liked what you heard, obviously probably need to go back and listen to this again. It was so much information, but please share it, leave a review, and thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.